This episode is brought to you by Performance Protocol. You all know I've been preaching about recruiting and development of our police teams. Many agencies across the country are still struggling with their numbers, which impacts everyone's wellness and true ability to do their jobs. Enter Performance Protocol, a premier solution to address these exact challenges, helping not only to get your agency fully staffed, but stay fully staffed. To learn more, go to performance-protocol.com. All right, I'm really excited to share with you the new Blue Grit Police Testing and Hiring Guide that's live on the website. Really, this is the culmination of everything I've learned about police testing from the time I came in myself and had to figure out trial by fire what it was that agencies wanted. At the same time, how to showcase my best version of myself, right? It's not about being something that you're not, but it's about understanding each stage in the game so you can present the best way. In my guide, I go in everything about the hiring landscape right now, how to develop your mindset, what to expect, and how to show up. So it's about knowing yourself well, like identifying strengths, weaknesses, how to conceptualize this, how to articulate this, and then going into the test itself. So written, physical components, interviews, everything that we're looking for there, the background, what that entails, polygraph, psych eval, medical, what these things all are, what they're trying to yield or determine, and then how you can make sure that you are showing up to be effective so you're not wasting your time, stress, money, all the angst of waiting for this extremely long-term process to go through. So just show up the right way, your best way the first time. Again, you can find that at bluegritwellness.com. Go to the shop, so it's bluegritwellness.com/shop.
And as long as you keep your eyes open on that, I'm doing the best that I can. I see Eric needs help with something. I'm going to go help him without being asked and without wanting anything in return. Because you being really good at what you do in the very worst day may be the thing that keeps me from being killed.
That's the stuff, man. Like, if everyone does that, we got nothing else to talk about. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tum. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Blue Grit Radio. This is your host, Eric, and I'm joined by an old friend. And when I say old, like, I'm talking about one of the first people I met coming into police work, right? So when you get hired on, you meet some people in your agency, people that were on your oral board, and then maybe your training officer. You may or may not meet a fellow recruit around your hiring time, but without further ado, I got Brian here, my academy mate, one of many in class 616. But Brian, thanks for coming on the show, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, so it's been fun because we've worked in the same little valley region that has been mentioned so many times in the podcast. As far as like similar dynamics and to be able to keep in touch. You're probably like the person I've kept in touch with the most. In kind of a twist of fate. It's not like we were super close in the academy, but it's been fun to continue to check in on each other's careers and interact through work. And then recently been talking about kind of dynamics of like yesteryear, which we'll go into, academy and being a new cop back then. And then like dynamics as we see them now and like how the conversations we can have as leaders, supervisors to show up the best way and the challenges that we're dealing with that we see with people coming out and policing today with academy and training structures being what they are.
Yeah, we've had, I would say, the great fortune of both of us. Well, one, our agencies are fairly close together. And again, anything I say on here is my opinion on my agencies. Pretty decent sized agency. We're a little bit smaller than you guys, but we're very close together. And through graveyard patrol work, K9 tracks in each other's cities. And then my time on a regional SWAT team allows you to be around a bunch of agency guys, especially people that you went to the academy with. And we've been pretty close for a while. Warrant meets at the edge of the cities used to be a thing.
Yeah.
And you'd run into people, you'd be like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. So no, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have a lot of warrant meets because you don't have a lot of places taking warrants.
Yeah, and at some point, your agency was just like, "Well, just drive here," and we'd be like, "All right, we'll just do that." So uh,
Mm-hmm.
that work too. The you talking to Ken brought up a bunch of nostalgia, and it's funny because there's people that I've listened to your podcast, and there's people that you really admire, people that have kind of formed a bunch of concepts of how you look at police work and leadership and being the fella in charge. And it's funny because those are some of the exact same people. Bill Blowers, Ken Henson, learning a ton from Chris Nielsen, Jason
Mm-hmm.
Salema. Like
Yeah.
these guys are, I think they underestimate their impact a little bit. And it was fun listening to Ken talking about to fire me out of the academy. That was fun.
He didn't say your name. He didn't say your name. I like how you mentioned that afterwards. You're like, hey, I love how Ken was talking about me.
Yeah, yeah, and I always felt bad for all you young folks out there. We used to actually have to take pretty good care of our uniforms, and this was day one of the actual academy.
Like, really
Um,
good care of our I was just talking about that in a recent episode. Like, we'd have to inspect each other, like little
oh,
threads hanging off,
yep,
like every speck of lint. We had like 4 lint rollers in the class, and like 3 things of shoe polish and
yep,
brushes, and all the different hacks of like, I looked this up with a lighter. You can get the
yep,
polish really, really good. Yeah.
yep. Make sure you're using the steam setting on your iron at night and get it nice and crispy because Ken didn't play. And it's funny to hear that he got to run the academy how he would have wanted to do it. And
Mm.
for us, it's just that was just the academy. We thought everybody else had the same experience, and finding out that we got it was a little bit more intense for us is I don't know, kind of a point of pride to be honest. Um,
Yeah. I think we didn't find out for a while because we were the step kids out in the corrections building above the lunchroom, right? Because there was it was '07. There were so many classes coming in. It
yeah,
was really the first of its kind with the hiring rush that fortunately you see now, but there was no room in the main academy building for
nope,
us. So we were like the kind of reject squad, and we had a special camaraderie because of that.
yeah,
Um, yeah, class 616, as many of the techs like looked at us in a certain way you found later, but uh, I think we were I think we were like the senior class or just about to be the senior class. And that was a huge awakening for me when we were at flag inspections and pushing and doing all that in our class Bs or whatnot, right? Our uniform, our day-to-day uniform in short sleeves in December,
yep,
or November maybe, right? Because I think we
mm-hmm.
graduated December. And the class under us, like they came out wearing their BDUs, so you got to wear your sweet cargo pants, right? Like
Yep,
slightly more comfortable, and crew neck sweatshirts. And we were just standing out there. They came, they did their thing, they left, and we're still out there. And I was like, oh, so
hmm,
we're still going to be here,
I guess.
memorizing or reciting our handcuff serial numbers and things like that.
Yeah, getting grilled by Ken Henson and Scott Rankin,
Mm-hmm.
our adopted tack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's interesting. I remember some very specific moments with you. I don't remember the guy's name that was with your agency that was in the squad with you and Berger.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. We'll leave his name out of it.
all right, I don't know.
He didn't
My
make it, so
my
out of
experience
respect to him.
my experience with him, he was a good dude. He was funny, and you do this thing. If people don't know Eric, Eric likes to sit back
Mm.
and read people, so he just won't say anything and be real kind of side eye. And it's crazy to think that I had just turned 23. Um, thinking you're a grown man when you're at that point, and then you look back at 23-year-olds now, and you're like, you have so much to learn. Um, so I was finding my way, and I got the distinct feeling like you got frustrated by me a lot.
Mm.
And there was at some point, like I said something and I made a joke, and you made, I don't know, everybody was kind of bickering. We were a close knit class, but we poked at each other a bunch. It was a good time. And I think I said something to you like, yeah, they may not all be home runs, but I come up with my own jokes. And you were like, all right, fair point. And then after that point, that was probably halfway through the academy. After that point, you were always much, much cooler to me. You were like, all right, man, I get where the guy's coming from. He's just trying to fit in. So that was a funny little weird turning point for us, because up to that point you were just like, get this loud idiot away from me.
Yeah, I think it's a I think it's a combination of things, and with introspection, getting older, and hopefully slightly wiser. But some of it is my own introverted nature, like growing
Hmm.
up super shy, and so in a new setting where I'm super uncomfortable, like don't know anything about police stuff, and I'm just like, here I go, I'm gonna give it my best shot. Um, there's that, and then also I think this is partly cultural, and from um,
Yep.
having Asian heritage in your family, like it's that adage of I remember hearing it as an adult, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it was almost like the light bulb went off in a big way, which is you have the greasy wheel, or sorry, the squeaky wheel gets the grease,
Hmm.
and also there's like the notion that like the loud duck gets shot on the eastern
Yep.
kind of philosophy side. So you're like, that's how I grew up, is like more of the don't make noise and don't bring attention to yourself, which Academy did nod towards, right? Like
Hmm.
you want to blend, you don't want to stick out. And so I might have questions and I wasn't going to ask them. I was like, I'm just going to hit the books later and ask somebody else. But you were the guy who I would say, like, this gets rewarded a lot when you have a healthy culture, is that you ask questions, you stay curious, so you're always learning. Whereas I'm like, dude, stop asking questions, because if they flip it on us and I don't know, then I'm going to be pushing. I'll be on my face pushing. So I think it's a
uh,
mixture of things.
that's I never thought of it in exactly that sense, but that is interesting. Talking about maturing, at some point in my career, I had to realize that I verbalize a lot when I'm trying to internalize it,
Yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah.
and I will tend to say yeah. And I didn't realize how condescending that can come across until kind of years later. And then once I kind of realized it, I would tell instructors out of the gate, like, if you're giving me, especially physical instruction, at the range doing DT stuff, if I'm saying yeah, like yeah, 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 it sounds like yeah, 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 and I know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
you're blowing
Definitely
them
not what I'm
off.
doing. No,
Yeah.
I'm literally like, remember that, dummy, because it's gonna hurt if you don't. Um, so that's something that I've just been forward about. I've done a ton of growing over the years. All good stories suck to make, so got to make your mistakes, kiddos. Like, you got to just go and stay curious and ask questions, because the questions that you have, somebody else absolutely has. So when I'm asking questions, luckily, unlike some of our classmates, these questions didn't come as a story. That wasn't a question at
Mm.
4:55 in the evening, spring loaded in the dumbass position.
Hmm. It's time to go home.
Yeah, dude, shut up. We'll talk
Yeah,
about this tomorrow.
I don't hear a question in your comment.
The fact that that was actually said to that guy multiple times cracks me up. Was there a question, or did you just want to tell a story? Okay, go home, guys. Um,
Yeah.
interesting dynamic, having been back to the academy recently. Um, man, we some of the challenges that we're seeing. You as a kind of an upper middle, I guess,
Hmm.
management,
Yeah.
upper middle management, and me as
Yeah.
like first line supervisor are seeing is, man, these folks are coming out with, they have the book knowledge, the generalized criminal law procedure.
Hmm.
Um, uh, attention to detail, a discipline, a structure is lacking a lot. Um, and there's some things that concern me about, uh, kind of setting them up for failure, as if like everybody's just going to listen to you. So you give a command, people listen, and there's not a whole lot contested, and that's a scary thought. And you combine that with, like we have talked about previously, kind of the generational thing of, when you and I went to the academy is the year the iPhone came out. So when we
Yeah.
texted when we were younger, we either got a fancy one with a keyboard on it, or you had to hit buttons multiple times to get to the right letter.
Yeah.
So we didn't really text. You would just call and have short conversations or talk to people in person.
And I'll even say, like, some people listening, because you brought up like, oh, 20 when you were 23 and you got hired, and I was 21 and I got hired. Like, there are people, plenty of cops across the nation that were born after the year 2000. Like, so let's just let that sink in. Do the simple math, like 2024, 2000. Like, so there's plenty. It's like everyone from 20 and a half getting hired and going to the academy, very few. But then like 21 to 24 years old, right? There's a crop of them. And
Yeah.
depending on how you grew up, you may or may not really know what we're talking about, where each number on a phone, like a physical button that you push down, it goes beep, like has 3 letters on it, right? So
Yeah. Open up your keypad on your iPhone.
B,
You'll
yeah,
see it.
yeah, like A,
They're
B, and
still
C.
listed. Yep.
Okay. So that's what he's talking about.
Yeah. Sorry, folks. So there's an interpersonal skill thing there. Like when you and I were young men, when we wanted to talk to a lady or whoever you're interested in, like you had to like go up and like say words.
Like to their face?
Yeah, to them in person.
Wow.
And it was terrifying. So like I've joked in my patrol room being like, if we could just get you guys to like just text message the victims and the suspects, we'd be fine. You guys would be able to communicate perfectly.
You're giving them ideas.
So but the job on the road hasn't changed. It's still people. It's just it's a people business. It is 100% a people business.
Yeah. There's a few things I want to hit there. One is like even going back to the social and personal awareness, right? When you're like, yeah, I realize that when I say yeah, when someone's teaching, they're like, okay, MF, like, okay, are you just like writing me off? You're like, no, like I am agreeing with you out loud. This is how I learn. So introspection being so huge, a topic that we hit a lot, which is like know thyself, and then in the right context with communication and working with others, like communicating that, right? So you've come to learn as a younger officer and advancing in your career, you're like, hey, FYI, I'm saying yeah because I'm agreeing with you. It helps me internalize things. And how much better that is for a trainer that doesn't know you to be like, oh, I'm down with that. Cool. Say yeah all day. It doesn't bother me now. Whereas before I was kind of like, is he kind of being sarcastic? You know, is he whatever he's doing, right? And so that's huge. I think that we talk about EQ, individual awareness, social awareness, and that's what we're on next, right? So it's like that interpersonal connection and relationship, because yeah, we can get cast as like old millennials or whatever, as I usually call them, but I like to say old millennials because I still grew up without internet, and then we had dial-up internet, we had one phone line, and it's like, so like we didn't have everything instantaneous, which just does change a generation a little bit differently. But yeah, that's such a thing, and I'm glad you said it is the people business. It always has been, it always will, should be. And I hate when it's become a pet peeve of mine when people are like, oh, I don't know what else I'd do because I hate people. I'm just a cop. I'm like, well, hopefully you're just being sarcastic and cynical, because if you really truly feel that way, then you're an absolute terrible cop.
Yeah. I agree. And even when people claim that I hate people. Right.
They usually, most of the people that you and I know that we work with that say that, they don't. That's why they do this job, and they're willing to put it all out there. They'll be more oftentimes coarse with their coworkers than they will with a victim, which is like, a lot of us know that if we just have the conversation. So
right. It's I think part of that is I didn't take any psychology classes. I'm not a school learning kind of fella. I like to learn on my own, but I do retain a lot of things. It's a defense mechanism for the things that you have to run into and you have to see, and a detachment a bit, because you like people, but you also realize that in our job, sometimes you may be put in a position where you're forced to hurt somebody. And it's easier in your brain to rationalize like, oh, I just don't like them, as opposed to like, no, I just had to do this and it wasn't personal. And then once they stopped, I stopped. No big deal. And that takes time to learn.
Yeah, that's really uncomfortable.
That takes a long time.
It disagrees with like how we're brought up and like kind of our condition. We want to get along. We are communal species. And I think that what you said is right on. And another way that we can look at this, especially for non-law enforcement that might be really uncomfortable with that, is like we see a lot of terrible things happen or having happened just then, just after, to people. And so to put the mask on, or the veil, or the emotional distance, whatever you want to call it, like that helps you actually operate well, right? We're compartmentalizing and not looking at that kid like our kid on purpose. So we're like, I'm trying not to even like really look at him. I'm trying to get the facts and then move on and hold it together until I get back to my car or what have you, right? Sometimes I don't know if you've had this, I'm curious, but like sometimes I flirted with diving in a little bit deeper and like having more connection. Or like the other day, I walked by the medic rig because part of me just really wanted to see like the kid doing okay. And then right away, I was like, "Why did you do that? Not to see the kid. I didn't see the kid
Yeah,
moving." I will report for the listeners because we got some empaths out there. But like the kid was fine, but I
that's good to
felt it
hear.
hit me in a way, and I was like, "Why did you have to look? Like, just wait until you know you don't know, and you're not
Yeah.
going to do anything for it right now." So, all to say that because it's hard. It's hard. You see some really bad stuff, and we don't want to see that bad stuff. But this is what we've chosen to do to help prevent or address fixing or bringing justice for some of that bad stuff.
Yeah, and I completely agree. There's definitely times where you're like, man, I probably shouldn't have gone. I shouldn't have gone to that call. It sounded like I had something I wanted to go to, and then you're last one there, and then all you're seeing, you're just soaking up things that you don't necessarily need to soak up. But it leads me kind of to something that I mentioned the other day. I sent you a quick video of it. That interpersonal thing, that armor we put on, and then you add in the generational stuff. We want to be communal. We want to be empathetic. We want to help people, which is the same stuff you and I said on oral boards. It's the same answers, which is true. We also want to go be an action hero and, put all the stuff on, drive fast, and be a cool guy because it's cool, man. It's a fun
Yeah,
job. It is a
it's
really
fun.
fun job. It's wildly complex. You don't have to be the smartest person in the world to do it. But you do have to remember a lot, and there's a lot of facets to it, and it can get very complicated very quickly. Even our generation, like, how many fistfights did you see growing up in school? Handful?
Couple, yeah,
5,
few.
6 maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I saw a few more. I went to a little bit rougher school in Lakewood, but even then, like, it was very, very heavily come down on by the schools. All the people that taught us how to be cops, them guys and gals got in scraps all the time. The generation now has been told since they were 4, you cannot put hands on people. You have to call somebody else. You have to outsource your force, outsource your violence to somebody else. And I think they fail to realize at some point, and maybe we don't do a good enough job teaching it as a career field, especially in this part of the country. You're now the outsourced violence.
Mm-hmm.
You're the person that's getting called there to handle the dangerous thing. So we have what I've observed is people don't know where their like violence line is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to keep pushing you or coming at you until you just flash and throw hands without skill or justification at all. But you don't know where, like, I've had too much of what you're doing to me. I'm now going to physically resist you.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know where that line is, which makes it really hard to then intelligently articulate why you're doing what you're doing when it comes to physical violence or subduing somebody, because you don't know where in yourself this is past, okay, I have to do something.
Yeah. So
So
if I'm picking it up right, you're recognizing that because some people were taught that violence is essentially never an answer. They don't know how to process like the actual danger. Like there's spider sense. There's these actual internal evolutionary triggers that are like danger, Will Robinson, like get out, and that's probably a reference that no one will understand that's listening to this. But
it's fine, keep going.
no, half of them will. Maybe the remake, right? But it's all to say like there's something in your body that's like I don't like you being this close to my face. I can feel the spit on coming onto my face, and you're really close. You're moving around in this violent way. Your voice sounds really scary, and I'm really nervous, and I'm really not paying attention to all that's going around me because all I can focus on you, and I'm scared, right? Like that's fear taking
Yep.
over for a reason, for your survival.
100%.
Yeah.
And it carries over into a bunch of different things, which is unfortunate, but this isn't something that can't be overcome. Like, we can change this. And I was glad I saw this video. Gentleman does not see any pre-attack indicators, hesitates terribly, gets slapped in his face. He's a fully uniformed officer in like a bar district, and then just gets back down and he starts running away. Where that happens, that would have happened with you or I, at Mock City in front of Ken Henson would have lost his mind.
Yes, for
And he would have
good reason.
he would have told you
Because,
straight up, find another job.
because what would he be seeing there? He's seeing one of these kids. He is entrusted with setting up for safety for not just them, but their families and the community. He's seeing someone that's going to get killed.
Or someone else killed.
That's what he would be seeing. Yeah.
Yep. And that also bleeds over to just correcting. And we've been told, since I started kind of doing leadership style stuff and all the classes that they force you to go through for law enforcement, there's always this giant focus on, you have to understand the generational differences. You can't talk to people in certain ways. So that same mentality, or that same gentleness, I'm going to avoid calling it softness, that gentleness that we've tried to put into law enforcement, because I think there were definitely times where we went too far with the whole suck it up, don't worry about it, and then that gets into the whole wellness and mental health part of it, and like can't show weakness and all that, and whatever, man. No one walks away from this job unaffected. That is a 100% certainty in my mind. You are affected by this. Just
Agreed.
The nature of it. You do nothing super cool. You don't do super whiz bang SIU sneaky squirrel stuff and just on patrol for 15 years. You're affected. There's no way around it, and we should deal with that. But at the same time, like, there should be some level of fortitude that you can bring to the table. And it seems like the current generation, as an example, you have to make a correction on a younger officer, you're just telling them direct. You're not even being mean, really. Not the way people were mean to me. So I'm trying to keep it blue grit, very good language. I've felt like I've done well so far, but like, some of the things said to me by senior officers was definitely not PG, definitely not even PG-13 language.
Yeah, you don't want HR listening in on that conversation.
No. But even just gentle corrections now will be, all of a sudden you're getting talked to by a command staff member of like, you should have said it, you could have said it better. And it's like, well, I don't know. Or is this a different job? Like, this is, maybe they need to show a little bit of toughness beyond resilience into grit. Kind of like the name of this podcast.
Thank you. Yes.
There's a lack of toughness there. And I think it might be bred a little bit because of our leadership classes tell us that we have to do it that way. And I think that these young folks are a lot tougher than we give them credit for. I think that we could bring back a lot of the positives of the old school ways. Just do it intelligently without being a bully, and have a reason for it.
Yeah, man. We're very much aligned on this, because a lot of the things you're saying, like, I started having things pop in my brain, which is like grit, right? We're talking about resilience, like determination. Like, you don't have to be the most robust. You don't have to be the smartest, quickest learner, right? But you need enough. And really, at the end of the day, you need your attitude. You need this, like, this attitude that's going to endure. And like, I got sucker punched in in academy, right? Like, and granted, yes, in the DT scene, it was like the high scene, as it's called, right? But like, I didn't have my hands up, so I got taught a lesson really fast, and instantly I was just like, oh man, my nose, and your eyes start watering because it's right square in the nose, and the guy's like, 6'3" with long arms, like this Tacoma dude boxer I got that guy. And so I was like, okay. And so I just rushed him, and with my hands up, and I grabbed his arm, and I think it was more like a bent arm bar kind of thing, and started taking him down. And then I heard like, King's X, like, don't hurt our, cop volunteering. And so I was like, okay, cool. Like, lesson learned and seen past, like, that's not something I had to learn again in that way. Right. But like, I bring up that example because that's the physical, the metaphor that's absolutely in tune, is like, we can't not address things. We can't not hold accountability as a new recruit, as a seasoned sergeant, as anybody, any point in your career. We're doing an absolute disservice to the person and everyone that they're working with. Like, we gotta encourage everyone to be their best. And so what I kind of hear in a lot of the things you're saying is like, earlier we're recognizing the importance of social awareness. And so like generational factors, I think that's, information is power, right? So that is useful inputs into helping me decide how I might address something. but I have to address it. And I think that that's what we're getting at. It's like
Yeah.
maybe some lesson I learned in leadership class might say, hey, when you structure things around trust and you focus on building communication by having regular sit downs with the person, then they don't feel so attacked. So cool, I'm down for that, right? Like that's something I talk with my sergeants, and we recognize as a team, a leadership team, that we ought to sit down with our people more often, or else we lose them in the swirl because after briefing it's like you're out of the gate and you got a stack of calls to work on. So like
Yep.
in sitting down with them, you can get to know each other better. You can check in, see if they need help, see if they got questions. If you have something for them to address that's really minor, just address it and you move on, right? And absent that, maybe you are creating more of this dynamic where someone feels attacked or they feel bullied. And it shouldn't be that. Like telling someone to do their job better is not bullying. That's performance coaching, right? Like,
Correct.
yes, there's a right and wrong way to do it. Absolutely.
And something I've seen come up. If you're, and I'm talking to like the younger cops out there that are listening to it, if you're a young go-getter and you're out there doing stuff, realize you are going to get a lot more correction than someone that is not as high drive.
Mm-hmm.
So before you get upset that why am I always getting in trouble? I'm doing all these things. I'm making these good arrests. I'm doing these good cases. And I'm looking at these other guys that aren't doing anything. Well, one, don't worry about what they're doing. That's not you. So unless it's something dangerous that they're doing that is putting people in danger, none of your business. So don't worry about whether or not they're getting coached up or they're getting pushed. But realize that when you do things, you said it earlier, the loudest duck gets shot first. If you're out there, chasing bad guys, getting in pursuits and pitting cars, like realize that your work is going to be highly, highly scrutinized.
Mm-hmm.
But don't get offended. Take it as a compliment. When I was on our tactical team, I found that when the instructors and the moderators or whatever you want to call them that were observing it, the team leaders, started getting really nitpicky on what you were doing, it means you were making progress.
Yeah.
Because now they're fine tuning.
Yeah, so I feel like we're recognizing both ends, and so my spin on that, what I would add is that knowing that the hard charger has a lot of great traits that they're exhibiting, right? They're engaged, they're not just, a beat slug, they're not just reacting only to what they have to do, the bare minimum. They're out there, they're putting themselves out there, they're putting themselves in the forge to learn more rapidly as well. We as leaders need to recognize and reward those good traits, right? I think that that's where we might get, especially if we're busy and we're all these things, right? That's where if we sit down and we check in more often, not just when a car gets smashed or something, like, cool, like you don't have that many reps. So when you pitted, you didn't have a good spot and that's why there's this huge damage. Like that's all they're going to hear is like damage, blah, 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 counseling, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Not, hey, great freaking work because this was a really dangerous person that we got off the street, or else you will encourage them to withdraw, right? They're dejected. They're your high performer that now has become the low performer, and that's a dangerous place. Someone that can be a high performer that chooses not to is a very risky employee in a lot of ways.
Agreed. 100%. And especially from your position as a commander, how often do you get to go and sit in the squad room and chat with them and tell them good things? You're dealing with, I have this use of force, this collision, I have this complaint, I have all this other stuff that you're doing. So the only time you focus in really is when you have to make some sort of corrective behavior or send something back to the sergeant. I have focused on for a long time sit downs with officers, not just the ones assigned to my crew, because I consider every one of my officers, every one of the officers at my agency is my officer. I have my crew that I'm specifically responsible for, but they're all my cops.
That's
so
solid ownership.
If I can be helpful in any way to any of them, that's my job. A big lesson from Bill Blowers is the mantle of leadership is very heavy and it is a burden, and you have to go into it with your eyes open and be willing to take on the responsibility, because everybody's your responsibility now. It's not just what you do, it's what everybody's doing. So you have to make sure you invest in these people so they're doing things the right way. I ended up catching a graveyard crew in the gym before their shift at the end of mine. I had a good chat with them because they're a great crew, super motivated, out there getting after it. And so they're getting little talkings to by some of the patrol commanders. And I asked them this question. I said, who is the number 3 receiver on the Cleveland Browns?
I certainly don't know any of the receivers on the Cleveland Browns.
My point being, they're not doing things at such a high level to where you know their name. And if they were, you'd know their name. Okay. What team does Aaron Rodgers play for? All these guys instantaneously, the Jets. Okay. How much flack does Aaron Rodgers or Joe Burrow or any of the starting quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, how much criticism does that guy get? Regardless of how well he plays.
All of it, yeah.
Exactly. So when you're out there doing things, you're going to catch criticism, and just realize that you have to, one, kind of learn to separate the wheat from the chaff. Take what you can to learn and get better, and disregard people that are just hating on you, because there's going to be people that are hating on you. Always talk about, you're reckless, you're this, you're that. Okay, well, I can throw insults back and call you a coward and call you a slug and call you lazy. Or I can just be like, I'm just doing what I do. I'm trying to get better. If you want to come with me, man, come with me. Let's go make some contacts. If not, cool, man. I'm not gonna hate on you. You show up, you strap the belt on, you go out there and you do your version of police. Cool. We're all on the same team. I'm not gonna not come to your call because I think that you don't like me. I'm still gonna come.
Yeah, and that's the thing is there's a lot of pieces there, and one great example in helping others realize like how you can buffer that, right? The last thing you want is that dejected high performer or high drive person, right? Maybe they're not high performer in every way, right? Maybe they are getting all the pursuits and not cleaning up the paper, right? So you can't even get the conviction, right? So there's a deficiency that, hey,
Agreed.
as leaders, it is our burden, right, to help get the team effective and the individual effective. And that might be a sit down to like, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? So you say, hey, here's what you're doing well. I really appreciate that. We need people on the team to do that. This is part of our job. At the same time, you build commonality, right? So share the goal, share the mission. Hey, what do we want to do once we arrest this guy? You caught him. Cool. Now what? We want him convicted. Cool. Okay, awesome. Here's some things we need to work on together. Not you, not pointing fingers, but like we, and build understanding. Hey, like, let's talk to the detective. Let's build these relationships, right? Same team. Not just, well, you didn't do this, this, and this, and then they get defensive and then they write them off. And then there's this, kind of corrosive rivalry or whatnot, or clicking up, clicking out. So, all that. And I think that's a powerful thing. At the same time, we don't want these cliques, these little cool kid clubs, because ultimately, I'm not talking about the underperformer. I'm talking about the person that's just not that confident in getting in the pursuit. But we need, as someone said before, and I don't know who it is, so we'll just go with it, but you need hunters and you need gatherers on the team, right? There are some people that are fantastic at any call they get, and they will take primary. They got a cleaned up case. They're super empathetic and patient with witnesses. They don't forget their check boxes. They get the surveillance, or they ask, hey, you never take your notepad out. I need photos. I need witness statement from that person. And usually those cops are like, happy to do it. I don't have primary. Awesome. Like, It takes a team. It takes a village. So I think when we can step outside of our personality ticks and we just look at the mission again, like, we're not the victims. It's the person who called, the person that got roughed up, what have you. Then it helps us kind of center on that.
Yeah, this is definitely not an individual sport.
No.
This is a 100% team environment. It's funny that you say that, need hunters and gatherers. I always took it as, and I think you're right, I don't remember which trainer said it. He's like, hey man, you need Ferraris and you need big diesel dump trucks.
Mm-hmm.
You need all of it. So work within your framework, do what you do. I was never like crazy high speed, Mr. Go get them. Not at all. But my entire goal, even in FTO, was like, I just want to be a solid cop.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be where I need to be when I need to be there. When I show up to your call, I don't want you to be like, oh God, this guy. Because there are people that show up to your calls and you're just like, I can't deal
I've
with your
heard it.
stuff today.
Yep. Like I've heard people say I'd rather run short than have them come in.
Right. And it might not be like an indictment on that person individually as a person. It's just sometimes you get everybody calmed down, and then hey, look, check it out, new Apple update. You get everybody calmed down, and then this person shows up and spins them up, or you're working on something and they want to jump on your call and they want to investigate it like it's the Lindbergh baby kidnapping, and all of a sudden they're finding all this extra work for you, and then you're like, where's your sup? And they're like, no, this is you, bro. Come on, man, like you're killing me.
Yeah.
So it's important that we all work together, and so in my experiences, I always wanted to be value added. So
yeah.
I had terrible luck. I'd run people's names. They'd be completely clear. I worked at a district as another guy. He got in 4 pursuits a week. I would run 400 plates and
That's just a talent. Yeah. Some people, you can get a little bit better, and some people just have it. They're just magnetic, right?
I ended up doing well when it would be like suspicious vehicle dispatch call, and then I'd show, and then I'd start picking up little crumbs, and then I'd turn it into something else and wrote several, not a ton, but got some good arrests out of just mundane calls that I just found a thread and kept pulling.
Yeah.
So you got to try and find where your strengths are and just be willing to help each other. And once that happens, the crew click thing is going to happen. There's no way around it. But as long as I agree with, as long as it doesn't turn toxic, like this crew is so much better than that crew. It's like, well, relax, fellas. Just like be proud of your guys' work, but let's not get toxic about this, because we are on the same team at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that there's healthy ways to do that, and there's healthy ways that peer leaders, I mean, leadership for sure, but like whether it's that person that everyone looks to, influential, or the sergeant or beyond, right? That you can build that alignment in your group, because control your controllables. Like you can control you, and then you control those that you work with, and maybe you can influence your boss, lead up a little bit, right? But then from there, let's keep a positive, constructive attitude. So it's not just us, them. Again, same team. Like there's healthy balances and healthy competition that you can breed up. But yeah, worry about your own house. And then if everyone does that, then we'll all be great. And I think that goes back to really what this whole podcast and project is about, which is helping people recognize that they have an ability to improve in every little way, just a little bit, right? And so ultimately you're right. Like there's Ferraris, there's diesel trucks, there's not cool. There's like the forklift, and then there's like just the golf cart that's just running snacks. Like, but everyone has a role. But you know what? If that golf cart with Gatorade and snacks is like on a long deal, like a long ordeal, like they're super necessary. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up, because this popped in my mind, where it's not just the cops either. I think one of my biggest pet peeves as a sergeant, and then certainly now as I've moved up a level, is when we seem to disregard people that aren't cops when they ask for things, right? Prosecutors, evidence techs, like we all have a job, and it's actually all to keep people accountable, like enhance criminal justice. The little control we have over that, like let's not write them off. Let's not ignore them. I mean, that's just a simple respect thing for one of your coworkers, same team again, right? Like, what do we want at the end of the day? Well, we want this person to be held accountable. Cool. Then you need to dial in your evidence. You need to address that thing, or you need to get back to the prosecutor. Let's just be respectful. Do your job. There's another way to say it, but that's the plain way to say it.
The do your job thing is funny, because you change the emphasis on it, and I know everybody's going to hate this. I'm a Patriots fan, and Bill Belichick said it. Do your job. I do my job, and you do your job, and I don't try and take your job from you. Everybody does their job together, we're successful, because we're all going the same direction.
Yes.
You can try and help your teammates by caring. And that's as easy as it is. So I want to make you better, and that's not by pointing out how you're falling. It's supporting you when I see the opportunities to support you. And as long as you keep your eyes open on that, I'm doing the best that I can. I see Eric needs help with something. I'm going to go help him without being asked and without wanting anything in return. Because you being really good at what you do in the very worst day may be the thing that keeps me from being killed.
Yeah.
And everybody talks about SWAT guys, arrogance, blah blah blah. Definitely some of it.
Canines
Definitely
too. Canines
there.
too. I'll own that.
I wasn't gonna say anything negative about canines, because if you make fun of canines, then all the canines hate you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna reserve the right to not say anything negative about a set of canine handlers. But you're correct. But for for the SWAT team stuff, you realize very quickly it's just patrol work with a lot of friends and all the
Mm-hmm.
toys. But when you do something like you're clearing a structure and you step into the room, if I'm constantly turning and looking at what you're supposed to be doing, I'm not covering what I'm supposed to be doing. So I have
Yeah.
to trust you to do your job.
Mm-hmm.
You have to trust me to do my job, and those things mutually support each other. My wife reminded me of an academy thing, and I didn't even think about it until just now. And we're talking about grit and resilience and just kind of toughness that needs to come back around, or we need to foster.
Mm-hmm.
The week leading up to our class photo, I was so sick. I had like 102 fever the entire week. Like, I went home like an hour and a half early one day, and Ken was like, "Hey man, you miss 8 hours. Like, you get recycled." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not trying to do
No
that."
way. Yeah.
Leading into the photo, and I have our class photo in the background. I don't look great. I had talked to Tack Henson. I was like, "Hey, I'm going to take this photo in our cool uniform, and then I may go like to the hospital because I'm that bad."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "All right, man." So we take the photo. Luckily, like, the fever broke like that afternoon. I didn't say anything to my agency. The only person that really knew was the people in my little squad, Luke Goethals and Emily Clark. They were like, "You look terrible." I'm like, "Just keep me awake so I don't get yelled at, please."
Team.
Pulled both my hamstrings at different times in the academy. So dropping down
Ugh.
and doing push-ups in the morning were not so
Everything.
great.
And we ran too. We ran a lot.
A lot,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
all the time.
By the
But
way, I had no idea. Like, I even with very little, like a building of vigilance, the sense of, like, awareness. I was like, how is that TAC officer in the very front of this line of 30 of us going to protect us with his revolver and a fanny pack if someone sees all of us with our name branded shirts and be like, you know what I don't like? Baby cops.
yeah,
Like,
I'm gonna run
I
them
thought
all
about
over.
that. I thought about
Yeah,
that, where I needed to run, which I guess was helpful to my training, like how I needed to dive in some, behind a planter or something.
yeah. Or just keep running. Just don't stop.
Just
Just don't stop. Just keep running.
don't be the slowest. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. You guys would have all got away. I'd have got shot. I was at the end of the line. I'm definitely not a runner. I really appreciate what you do, man. There's a lot to be said about you putting yourself out there, and I don't know if anybody said that to you. I know you get a lot of like publicity, a bit, Police One stuff, and you getting your name out there. But it takes a lot to want to put yourself forward, in a non-self promoting way, which is really good. And you put a lot of effort into giving people some perspective and trying to get the right people into this profession. So I just want to say thank you for that. I've always thought that was really awesome.
No, thank you, man. I've talked about it a bit. It does always feel self-promoting. Almost every time. Like, I said I was shy growing up, but it feels self-promoting, putting my face on stuff, and like, it's literally like all the time. That's what my social media is. That's what social media is. But the why is there, right? Like, however long I'm doing this, I want to be helpful and of service to the need, and that's where I got really excited when you were down to talk about this, because we had this organic conversation over a lot of these things to try to be better leaders for our teams. And like, yeah, there is this kind of gruffness of like, man, we got some challenges with some of the mindset that we're seeing with people coming in or people that are applying, or fill in the blank, but we have a part in that, right? If you're going to come on the team, then we have influence. And that's where I hoped and I knew this conversation would cover a lot of what we covered, with that intent, which is to say, what are the tangible things we can do? Not positive to be fluffy, but constructive. Like, how do we get the team aligned? And that's where I really love what you said in part of that, which was recognize that everyone has a part. Do your job, right? Like, focus on you. Again, that's really the piece of, if I had to like say like what this whole thing is really about. When I started my social media, I thought it was about wellness and like kind of a little bit of humanization with the badge, trying to take a note from Diego and our friend Diego and how he would put himself out there, community events and all that stuff that I hated doing and I didn't want any part of, but seeing the power in that and, honestly, seeing the power in his example, highlighted unfortunately by his death. And that was my silver lining, is like, man, so many people get to really hear us talk about people, because we don't really talk about people while they're here, is kind of the unfortunate thing at times. But I say that to say that if everyone just focuses on themselves and don't try to be the other person, like there's no part of the tongue that should try to be Brian. There's no part of the Brian that should try to be me, but we learn from each other.
Yeah.
And that's where you become the best officer, the best leader, the best dad you are. And that's where I feel more comfortable in that, like the writing and stuff. And yeah, just putting myself out there. But because with practice, like it felt super uncomfortable the first time I went on podcasts. I joked about it recently, like I'm scared to listen to it the first time I went on someone else's podcast to talk about recruiting, trying to help my agency. Like, I have reps and I'm still nowhere near where I want to get with recorded speaking or anything like that. But that's the point. Like, you just keep getting better at it. And so if everyone realizes that you're not trying to become someone else, you're just trying to shave off little bits of the parts that are not effective for you and your team, and you're trying to build on little dabs of clay onto the parts that are effective for you and running your life the way you intend to run it with your values and your team's values, like that's the stuff, man. Like if everyone does that, we got nothing else to talk about. And that includes leading with confidence and humility, right? You talked about at the beginning, these people that we hold in high regard at the beginning. And I wasn't on the team, but I had enough interactions, even neighboring agency, because of how they treated people, because of how they held themselves to a standard clearly. And that is contagious in all the right ways. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate you and bringing this conversation into fruition, because I think that this does balance some of that real talk, where from a line, first line supervisor, where you're seeing it the closest, right? I recently recorded with a couple chiefs and retired chiefs, and they're saying all the same things in a different flavor.
Yeah.
But it is ultimately like leadership's leadership, and you got to demonstrate and model trust and build a foundational environment to support that trust. But really, we're not just talking about fluffy words like trust and safety. We're talking about, I just want to be able to be effective, and I want you to see that I'm trying to help you be effective, not take it any kind of way. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting that, stuff with chiefs and they're saying the same things. It's like you said, I don't want to say the word stilted, but that's the only thing I can think of right now. I'm just like, goes from conceptual to on the ground. And you're right.
Yeah.
I need to be able to show you that you're valued, but also show you what right looks like, teach you how to make it right, and then hold you to keeping it right every time. And it's not an attack. This is the standard, man. Like, and when I get you here, I'm going to raise the standard to here. And then it grows and it gets better until the point where I can then just see small mistakes and be like, hey man, this, and you've already identified your own mistakes, which is a great place to be in a skill set, when you can get done with a training rep of something and they're like, how'd it go? And you're like, I messed up this, and this. And they're like, yep. Or they're like, yes. And that last one, you're a little hard on yourself. That's not so much. You did fine.
Yeah.
When you can start to see your own mistakes, start calling your own shots, kind of thing. That's a good place to be. Because when we all start this, man, like I said, it's not that the job is fairly simple, but extremely complicated at the exact same time. And there's no real good way for me to describe it other than it gets really complicated very fast. The deeper you get into it, you start to see more facets. So I'm looking forward to more conversations, man. Like I could go for a while about this whole job. There's a bunch of stuff, but
yeah,
like the trust and the safety thing, especially for leadership, it's like, man, the only way to get trust from your group, your work group, your team is to give it.
Yep.
Only way to get respect is to give the respect. I'm not not overly, not kissing anybody's butt or being fluffy about it, but just being respectful and talking to them like a human, and trying to relate to them. Like, also the people that we're out here on the street with, they're just people.
Yep.
So you don't have to talk weird like a cop. Just be you, man. Like, just
Yeah.
be a guy, be a gal. Just talk to them. Be normal. And it takes time. The only way to build resilience is to go through some stuff. So you gotta
100%.
you gotta earn it. It's
Yeah.
nothing's given for free. Everything's got a cost.
Yep. 100%. And that's like really what it's all about, is just like we talked about, outsourcing safety and security and, violence for those that want to be violent. Like, it's really what I want to continue to lean into as a theme of Blue Grit, is like, don't outsource your leadership. Like, it starts with you. Lead yourself and everything will start to fall into place, right? Slowly get better, recognize these things. If you have a Sarge that's looking out for you, like Brian, like even if it feels like he's coming in hot, like, let's take a step back. Let's think, empathize, right? Where is this coming from? Is he attacking me to attack me? Or would it be easier? Like, I think we all realize when we take a step back, a supervisor that's not on me might not care ever, right? Like, what's easier? Is it to be in someone's business, if you want to label it that, or is it to just be like completely detached? Those are the people that you feel like you want to work for them sometimes, but you don't, because
Yeah.
they're not putting in the work into you. They're not putting in the work to themselves or anyone else. So
Yep. You'll find quickly that all that seems awesome because there's no adult supervision, and then you realize that maybe they don't really care. And I don't know how much I can stress that more. Like, care about your coworkers. It sounds harsh, and I don't mean it exactly this way, because there's a lot of people that care about cops. A lot of people that care about what we do, really support us. The vast majority of people, in my experience, do.
yes,
But man, no one cares about you. A patrol cop, no one cares about you. No one cares about you but you. And you work with other patrol cops. So if you care about yourself, man, care about your crewmates, and then care about the detectives, and then care about the civilian employees. Like, care about each other. Because with things that I'm sure you're aware of, stuff with my good friend that's going on, it was very quick that people walked away. And at the end of the day, man, it's just you and your crew. And at the end of 30 years, the only one that's going to remember those good times in the patrol room and on crazy calls is you and your boys. And when I say boys, I mean everybody. Let's not be silly.
yeah,
But you and your crew, you guys are going to remember that stuff for the rest of your lives. So focus on taking care of each other and making each other safe and happy to come to work and healthy. Because all the rest of the other stuff that we try and talk about, fitness and wellness and this, that, and the other, and if you pay it lip service, none of it matters unless you care. You have to care. I'm trying really hard not to swear right now, Eric.
You're doing great. I think we might have both said like the S word at one point, but like that's fine. People can swear on here. I try not to, only because I've gotten in the habit of trying not to. But oftentimes I do.
Trying to keep it wide audience for your
you're doing great
for the podcast ratings.
Yes.
So
like
get marked down.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit on a couple things, and I think that's perfect stuff to wrap on, right? Like, it's hard enough, and this is a theme that's come up in a lot of episodes. It's hard enough. Like, yeah, with the really loud, toxic people that are trying to bring us down, the trolls, or just like the naysayers that will never want to see things in a way that we present it. Yeah, we don't do it for them. We do it for the people out there that need our help. And we have enough fighting out there with actual like violent people that want to be violent with everybody, including us. Like, let's not infight our own team, like people on our crew, people on our PD, and beyond, right? And then the other piece of that is, again, like, focus on what you can, because you're right. Another theme that's come up is like, this job cannot be you. That we may or may not get to choose how long we are doing this job and then how long we have on this earth. And that's not to be depressing. I know a lot of people oftentimes are like, man, that's so like brash and so like cold, but like, it just is. Like, the world goes on and people will miss you and what have you, right? But you have to be sure of your why you're doing it. No one's holding you hostage here. Like I think that a lot of us had this really like kind of doom and gloom for a while, and hopefully most of us are starting to come out of it. But for those that aren't, like, try to bring your people up, right? Hey, we choose to be here. This is a cool job where we get to do cool stuff, like this, the driving, and then the training. Like, some people hate going to do firearms training. Like, I didn't grow up around guns. I'm not a gun nut by any means, but every time I'm in the range, I'm reminded, like, this is some really cool stuff that is like not stuff that most people don't get to be around and at this level, and you get paid this asinine amount of money to do it. And it's a really expensive hobby if you wanted to do it on your own. And
Yeah.
it's really expensive to get like what would be world-class training from a lot of our firearms level instructors around the nation, like, and certainly our region, like the people that are doing
sure.
SWAT and firearms, like top notch. What that would cost for 4 hours of their time, I know,
Yeah.
I have a sense, but yeah. But
A
yeah,
lot.
man, like
A lot of money.
like, again, really constructive tips that hopefully everyone has a lot that they can work with, whether they are the junior person, because you are the future leaders. Like, as far as it's concerned, me and Brian are kind of irrelevant when we think about the focus of you. Like, there's future
Yep.
chiefs and sheriffs out there that are getting hired right now, and we're already, we're already midway at a minimum. So, and that's on a good day. So,
Yeah, exactly.
so yeah, man. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks
And
for
yeah,
having me, man.
there's plenty of time for more conversations. Absolutely.
For certain, there's definitely, we could delve into pretty much everything that we talked about and get much deeper and more concepts. But it's absolutely been a pleasure. I think we kept it little longer than you thought, but not too bad. I think we're doing all right.
No, we're money. All right. Thanks
Perfect.
again, man.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.